Very bad subject for the Democrats.
We have 654 miles of fencing already out of 1,994 miles of the border.
There is no emergency at the border. It's a mythology of the president. The wall is not effective.
We're trying to promote the Green New Deal.
I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing.
Charges against Robert Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots, and singer R. Kelly, both facing some stunning charges related to sexual offenses. And there's heat also on Labor Secretary Alexandra Acosta.
Isn't 10 million enough? At what point is it immoral? Maybe we shouldn't be eating a hamburger for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
If socialism, vegetarianism, and reparations are the campaign theme for the eventual Democratic nominee, it sounds like Donald Trump will win.
News alert, someone stole Katie Pavlich's hard-boiled eggs.
They stole my breakfast. I didn't have it, so I'm a little grumpy today. That's why.
It's going to be okay. I came all the way from Mexico to find your eggs.
Yes.
And we will resolve that
on the case.
We are investigating that as we speak, aren't we?
But we are indeed.
Speaking of the border, you were just down in Juarez, correct?
We were, and you know, I was in Ciudad Juarez, as our viewers know, and it is such a big part of the news cycle now because on Friday the House introduced resolution to vote against the President's national declaration, and we will get a vote on Tuesday morning in Washington.
Yeah, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi talking about the pushback on President Trump's resolution. Listen to this.
On Monday, we will send to the Rules Committee the resolution of disapproval of the president's actions. We say that not in a partisan way. We not say it in any political way. We say it in a patriotic way.
President Trump knew this was coming when he declared this national emergency and signed the funding bill. He talked about getting sued. He talked about pushback from Democrats and talked about how he hasn't had any help from them when it comes to putting forward a plan. I find it interesting that they're spending all of this time to come up with a resolution to condemn the actions, but they're not spending time on any kind of bill to actually move immigration reform forward.
Well, and it's also a bit of a futile point because the president said, I'm going to veto that as soon as it happens. Take a listen.
Will I veto it? 100%. 100%. And I don't think it survives a veto. We have too many smart people that want border security, so I can't imagine it could survive a veto, but I will veto it, yes.
Yeah, I mean, we have to remember that despite Nancy Pelosi saying this is not partisan, this is not political, the vote or the decision to put this to a vote on Tuesday is both partisan and political. Just take a look at the lines, you know?
Great point, because if you looked at that Speaker Pelosi soundbite, she's in Laredo, Texas, right? That's right there on the U.S.-Mexico border. And then there was a delegation from the House Democrats and the House Homeland Security Committee, actually in El Paso, right across from me, seeing what's going on the border. So when they come, in the case of the Democrats that came to El Paso, there is a 470% increase from last year in total number of apprehensions. Will we hear from that committee and those Democrats that they went and saw the problem that it is? Will they call it a crisis? We'll find out.
Well, and that's the question. If they don't think that it's a crisis, then what would they classify it as? We've heard continually about inhumane conditions inside of these ICE detention centers because they are overflowing with people. Border Patrol continually saying, look, we don't have enough room for families that are continuing to come over here. And because the bar for asylum is still very low in terms of the first initial claim, people are still abusing that. And so Congress hasn't put forward any solutions yet to fix the asylum fraudulent claim problem, and they also haven't done anything to make sure that Central Americans can be turned away and deported immediately, just like illegal immigrants from Mexico.
And we have all morning long to delve into your experiences at the border, but you're an amazing resource because you've been down there so much more than any other journalist right now. What is the sense that you're getting? How does this all come to a head?
Well, it comes to a head when you have a bipartisan solution to what is an undeniable increase in traffic, increase in narcotics. The RGV sector that I covered, they have frequent days where 1,000+ arrests are happening, 1,000+ pounds of narcotics are coming across. But, you know, the president is responding. It is something that the American people understand, and he's sending another 1,000 troops. I think we've got a graph I just want to put up. Now, there's 5,000 troops already existing on the border in deployment. Another 1,000 troops are being sent this coming week. By March 1st, you will have a total of 6,000. They will serve in an advisory, in a capacity that will support the efforts of our Border Patrol. Because when you have 1,000 people come over, many of them are family units, they have to be processed. That's agents off of the line, agents whose job is to stop the illegal entry, having to come back. In some cases, they're sick, they have to be dealt with or given care. It's a resource issue, and so at some point, to answer your question, it's going to have to be a bipartisan solution that deals with it.
While the president is sending more troops to the U.S. border to do things like bolster the infrastructure and the barriers that are already there, Julian Castro says that it makes sense to take some walls down. Listen to this.
We have 654 miles of fencing already out of 1,994 miles of the border. And so would it surprise me if there are places where it makes sense to take some of that down? No.
And if you think this is an isolated view, when I was down in El Paso and I was in Miami talking with the anti-Trump protesters, I asked them point blank, should we tear down borders? Should we tear down walls? Should we tear down everything? To a man and to a woman, they all said yes.
Yeah, there's agreement also amongst the migrants in the caravan. We asked many of them, some on the air, whether they wanted to see the wall come down, and they thought that was a good idea.
They probably don't want the wall to come down. But switching gears here a little bit, the Green New Deal has been in the news a lot. It's a proposal that's been put into real legislation. Senator Dianne Feinstein was in her office with a bunch of people, children, who wanted to talk to her about the Green New Deal, and listen to how she responded to them wanting her to vote for it.
We're trying to promote the Green New Deal.
Well, there are reasons why I can't, because there's no way to pay for it. You just can't go in and say, okay, we're going to take hundreds of millions from here and hundreds of millions from there. It just doesn't work that way.
Some scientists have said that we have 12 years to turn this around.
Well, it's not going to get turned around in 10 years. What we can do,
Senator, if this doesn't get turned around in 10 years, you're looking at the faces of the people who are going to be living with these consequences.
You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway. I don't respond to that. I was elected by almost 1 million vote plurality, and I know what I'm doing. So, maybe people should listen a little bit.
These kids, who let these kids in my office?
Oh, come on.
They knew too many things.
I feel sorry for Senator Dianne Feinstein. Whatever the politics are, she's explaining her job to children who have been persuaded by some of the more outrageous, irrational statements made about what this Green Deal...
You know what kids are good at? Memorizing lines. And they clearly were memorizing some talking points that have been sent out about the 12 years and we're doomed kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, they clearly gave them a sheet of paper and said, say these things to Dianne Feinstein.
But it's the serious side of what we just watched is, and I have 2 teenage daughters, I've watched in their generation, the movement that started with getting rid of straws. I thought it was the most preposterous thing ever, but this documentary that showed that, there's straws are the worst thing in the world. Now you go many places, can't get straws.
That's true.
Here's what Dianne Feinstein had to say about this brouhaha, which I think is the most uncomfortable piece of TV we will see all morning. She writes, I want the children from the Sunrise Movement to know they were heard loud and clear. I have been and remain committed to doing everything I can to enact real, meaningful climate change legislation. Let's not forget that she does herself have 7 grandkids. And I want to pose this one little thing to the kids, not to be mean to children, but how did you get to Senator Feinstein's office? Was it by car? Right. Was it by plane? Your activities that you go to, going to school and everything? Do you get driven by car? Would you rather walk? I mean, these are things that these kids need to be told because there's a reality of the situation, and it is you kind of need a car.
Well, and Senator Feinstein's doing the right thing. I mean, with all due respect to the kids, we're not going to implement an entire Green New Deal because kids want us to. I mean, there are real debates to be had about the environment and climate change, as people say, but we're not going to do that based on kids who come in with talking points into congressional offices on Capitol Hill.
Right, and as the father of children who pays for a lot of things for your children, because that's what parents do, you have to look at these kids should be talking about the economy and the impact that a Green Deal could have on impacting the economy, which, by the way, if you look at this week, Yahoo Finance, let's show you this headline. Dow's 9-week winning streak is the longest in nearly 24 years.
That's right,
Put it up
Griff.
there in a second. There we go. CNBC, the stock market rally to start 2019 is one for the history books. You just don't see kids coming to Washington to talk about economic issues, do you?
We should send kids to Capitol Hill to talk about will the Dow hit 27K at some point soon. That would be an awesome number and would show how good the Trump economy is doing, save for a little blip last fall.
Well, as a child who was interested in politics, I applaud these children for being involved. But I would say that we can't be, based on the things that I probably advocated for when I was a kid.
What did you advocate for?
Free outdoors all the time for
it.
everybody. More treats for all the puppies.
And
all the
hard-boiled eggs.
And hard-boiled eggs.
Email us
Don't steal each other's lunch. It's
Email
not
us
very nice.
give us your thoughts now. Email us at friends@foxnews.com. Are you teaching your kids about the Green Deal or about the economy or something else? We want to know.
Yeah, we want to know what they are. All right, well, turning now to some of your headlines. Embattled music star R. Kelly is expected in court today after turning himself into police overnight. He's behind bars in Chicago on 10 counts of criminal sexual abuse charges for accusations dating back more than 2 decades. The indictment coming just weeks after a Lifetime docuseries detailing several allegations against him. Kelly has denied the claims. The owner of the New England Patriots is charged with soliciting sex. Bob Kraft allegedly videotaped paying prostitutes at a spa in Jupiter, Florida. His spokesperson releasing a statement, quote, "We categorically deny that Mr. Kraft engaged in any illegal activity." The 77-year-old billionaire is among 25 people charged in the sting. A warrant for Kraft's arrest will be issued this week. And actor Jussie Smollett is being removed from the final 2 episodes of Empire. This as Smollett now claims he has an untreated drug problem. Prosecutors believe he may try to use the claimed addiction to get a reduced sentence. The actor faces a felony charge for allegedly staging a possible hate crime hoax in Chicago. Police say he orchestrated the assault to advance his career. And President Trump and Kim Jong-un impersonators are detained in Vietnam ahead of the U.S.-North Korea summit. The Kim Jong-un impersonator claimed police threatened to deport them because they were causing a disturbance. Both have since been released. Police questioned impersonators during the North Korea summit last year. In Singapore, the real President Trump and Kim Jong-un will meet in Hanoi on Wednesday and Thursday. And those are your headlines.
We're gonna be
It is a little
covering-
distracting to have some impersonators there.
We're going to be covering that thing from sun up to sundown every single day.
Fox News will have every
Free
single
the
angle covered.
impersonators.
Ed Henry's actually in Singapore, not Singapore, Vietnam.
Vietnam. We're going to
He's on his way.
We're going to talk to him tomorrow, I think. All right, Democrats say the crisis is no emergency, but a new study says the number of illegals crossing into the country is about to soar. The author of that shocking study joins us next.
And football legend turned baseball star. I got the chance to visit one-on-one with the one and only Tim Tebow at Met Spring Training. His inspirational message on baseball and faith. All that straight ahead as Fox and Friends on a Saturday morning rolls along.
Apprehensions at the border on the rise under President Trump, but what about those who make it through successfully?
New research projects up to 500,000 illegal immigrants will enter the U.S. through the southwest border this year. So what does this mean for the future of legal immigration in this country?
Here to explain it is the author of this study, the president of Princeton Policy Advisors, Stephen Kopitz. Steve, thanks for joining us. I just returned from the border. Really, the numbers are amazing, whatever part you go to, but your study has a pretty high number that you think may come. How do you arrive to that number, and what do you think it will be?
Right, so thank you for having me. It's great to be here. So one of the trends we've seen is since last summer, the number of apprehensions at the border, the people they're catching trying to come across, have really soared. And they've gone up very quickly. And I think that's really driven by the economics here. We see a huge number of job openings from the JOLT survey. And what that tells us is there are a lot of open jobs that we really can't fill, and a lot of those clearly are in the lower segment. By our count, there are about 2 million open jobs in that migrant segment that they would serve. And people are responding to that from south of the border. You know, there's work here. If you can get across the border, there's great work, and they're coming, and we can see they're coming in big numbers.
But what about the asylum part of this? Because as we've seen the surge, people aren't coming and saying, I'm coming for a job. They come to the border and say that they're seeking asylum. And so do the laws, as we were talking about before the segment, do the laws on the books encourage this type of illegal immigration for economic reasons, but is it done based on a false premise?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is. I don't think all of it is, but a lot of it is people want to come up for a better life. A better life includes being more safe, right? But I think that the drivers are primarily economic. The people who come up are going to play the games by the rules as they're enforced, not as they're written. So if they can see that they can use asylum as a method, they're going to use that. So you have to be very careful when you draft laws, and because people will use the means available.
So the goal is the same, which is better life, whether you're in Honduras, El Salvador, or Guatemala. Let me show you the numbers here. 381,000 potential illegal immigrants crossed into the U.S. undetected. That's 2018.
Right.
You say that it's going to be incredibly larger than that number right there because of this reason. So when you hear some politicians say that there is no crisis, that this isn't happening, how do you respond?
Well, it is happening. So we had a down period really from the Great Recession from 2008, 2007 until 2018. And you can see that in remittances back to Mexico. There was a whole 10-year lost decade for illegal migrants too. And that's why they drifted out of the country. But that really ended last summer. We can see remittances now are at a new all-time high, passing the 2007 level. There are a lot of jobs and they're beginning to come back. So that's why we see these numbers building back now to actually pre-recession levels. And we think that in 2019, we'll be back at 2008 levels, so that at levels before the Obama administration. And they're just responding to the fact that the U.S. has a very strong economy.
So what is the policy solution to solving this problem?
Well, I mean, we have a solution that's different from everybody else's, right? Our view is that illegal immigration is a black market. The U.S. has never beaten any black market of any kind, whether that's drugs or gambling or prostitution. And the best way to do it is to legalize it and tax it. And we've done that successfully. We did it in 1933 with repeal of prohibition. We did that with gambling, right? So now we have Atlantic City and Las Vegas and Mega Millions. And we're doing it now with marijuana in a sort of semi-chaotic way, but making progress. And for example, here we can see at the border, the seizures of marijuana in the unsecured border have fallen by 60%.
It's crazy. There's 1,000-pound days coming across the border. Stephen Kopits, thank you very much for bringing us.
Thank you very much.
We'll have you back when we have some hard numbers later in the year.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
A ruthless attack on a college campus caught on camera, and while police work to identify the attacker, it's far from the first time that conservatives have been targeted. We take a look at the disturbing trend that happens far too often on campuses up next.
And this boy gets creative, turning to his Ring doorbell to ask his dad a question when he wasn't home. The awesome exchange going viral. You don't want to miss this. Good morning. Some quick headlines for you. President Trump nominating the U.S. ambassador to Canada, Kelly Knight Craft, to be the next UN ambassador. The president tweeting in part, "Kelly has done an outstanding job representing our nation, and I have no doubt that under her leadership, our country will be represented at the highest level. She will replace Nikki Haley, who resigned last year." And the president's administration is banning tax-funded family planning clinics from promoting and performing abortions. The move potentially blocking centers like Planned Parenthood from receiving millions of dollars in federal funding. The policy is expected to be challenged in court. Todd?
Griff, thank you. Police say they know the guy they're looking for who punched a conservative activist on the UC Berkeley campus. Police not revealing a name yet, but say the suspect is not a student or an affiliate of the university.
The attack just the latest in a series of violent encounters aimed at young conservatives like those at Turning Point USA.
You know it's better for people? Cheap labor, that's how you get cheap. You pay nothing. Film it, bro. Film it.
I'm filming it.
Yeah, bro.
Take responsibility for your
All right, here we act as founder and president of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk. Charlie, thanks for being here. Thanks for getting up so early. And it seems to me that the left only allows you to have free speech if you agree with said free speech.
That's exactly right. I commonly say the left hates the idea that there are other ideas. And this is getting very serious. I mean, look, all violence should be denounced by everyone. But in a week where there was a lot of coverage about a fake hate crime in Chicago, there was a real hate crime out at University of California, Berkeley. And you saw that horrendous footage where there was a conservative activist at our Turning Point USA recruiting event where they were just talking to students, trying to grow our chapter at University of California, Berkeley. And our students know we're going to be in the ideological minority at UC Berkeley. We understand it's not exactly the easiest place for conservatives, but nonetheless, we're there and we're recruiting. And someone found our message so disturbing that they had to challenge us physically and violently. And thankfully, the police got involved. They found this individual. But this is a growing trend. And you saw in those videos, this is happening hundreds of times a year. Not necessarily always physically, but we get we get verbal abuse, the harassment, and also just the retaliation from the leftist people on campus that try to prevent us from being there in the first place.
But Charlie, this isn't just happening on college campuses. You, of course, were confronted with Candace Owens in Philadelphia last year. Let's take a listen to that and then talk about it. So Charlie, those were violent Antifa protesters running you guys out of a cafe. Is this getting worse when it comes to college campuses and just conservatives in general being able to just go about their daily lives in America and have their own belief system?
Yeah, I'm afraid that unless the left gets called out for this ridiculous behavior, it is getting worse. And so what's so scary about this example at University of California, Berkeley, is that a staff member for the university praised this attack. Came out and tweeted and said, not a professor, but a staff member for the data education program said, thank you for coming out and challenging Turning Point USA. I mean, this is really where we're getting, where physical violence is now being heralded by official staff members of the university. And so look, the left, they hate the idea that there are other ideas. We are not going to back down. We don't ever engage in any sort of physical confrontation, but we're also not going to allow the leftist mob to get away with using physical intimidation against conservative students. And look, we have so many people out there that just want to be able to grow chapters around the ideas of free markets and limited government without having to get punched in the face.
A real debate.
That's exactly
rather
right.
than a physical confrontation.
Here's what Berkeley had to say. UC Berkeley's commitment to freedom of expression and perspective is unwavering, as is its intolerance for violence and harassment. What's your response to that statement?
Well, they're saying the right thing, but now they need to be doing the right thing. Are they really teaching tolerance of other people's views? And I always like to say the most intolerant people in the world that you're going to find are liberals preaching tolerance. Right. And we see that time and time again where, you know, they're very tolerant of things on the left, but when a conservative comes on campus, not so much. And we'll see. I might be visiting there next week. I might be making some news right now, so I might be going to see how tolerant UC Berkeley actually is.
Okay.
Be
safe.
We'll be challenging on their home turf.
Charlie
you better
Kirk,
believe it.
Thank you for all you do. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Charlie.
And be safe.
Thanks, Katie. You bet. Thank you.
All right, well, 3 top Democratic presidential candidates signaling support for reparations for African Americans, but Elizabeth Warren wants to take it a step further.
Plus, he literally won the Heisman Trophy and then turned into a baseball star. He's the one on the left. We're talking about Tim Tebow. I got a chance to visit him at Met Spring Training. His inspirational message on baseball and faith next.
And a patriotic assist at this basketball game. The incredible moments from the crowd came to the rescue when the gym speakers blew up and out during the national anthem. Shot in the morning in the home of the Patriots. A basketball crowd doesn't miss a beat during the national anthem.
The show of patriotism happened because the gym speakers blew out.
Yeah, this was at a high school playoff game in San Antonio, Texas. We love showing these types of displays of patriotism, especially when the team's name is the Patriots.
Yeah, that's the best part. It says it above them. You know, you just see Patriots and you hear them doing it. But you had a big interview.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun earlier this week. Remember, we were down in Miami, did a diner segment in Miami on Tuesday, and then Tuesday afternoon, we went on up to Port St. Lucie, which is the home of Mets spring training baseball, and there we got a chance to interview one of our favorites here on Fox and Friends, Tim Tebow. We talked about a lot of things, from baseball to faith to his new movie. We asked a few more questions. Check it out. How does it feel to be back with the boys?
It feels really good. Every team has the hope that this is their year. Or, you know, their minor leaguer is going to come up and help their team. It's only been a couple of days so far, but it's so much fun. I mean, look at this weather. We're playing a great game. I mean, it's awesome.
Was there something part of your game right now that you're saying, hey, this is going to be top shelf in 2019?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're striving for, but I think it's just in every area to get just a little bit better. That 1% in every area, and when you look back, if you do that, then you've made up a lot of ground.
While your colleagues here at spring training camp were practicing during the fall, you have another job as college football analyst.
Yeah.
Put down the slogans because they don't work, all right? You know what works? It's called heart.
So you had a unique training regimen when you were on the road.
I train everywhere I went and bring coaches with me. But that's part of my life. I travel and speak and share and go on a lot of mission trips, so you find a way to train in those situations.
You've been unabashed in bringing your faith to your game, be it football, be it baseball, be it life. How do you reconcile that with the world around us that right now is somewhat anti-religion?
I don't know if I try to bring it with me. I think it's just who I am. I'm a Jesus follower and I love him. Hopefully that's something that people can respect, because you believe in something that much, it's going to come out in your actions, and hopefully that's something people can see.
You decided that college football analyst, baseball player wasn't enough. You decided to branch into other things. The movie is a combining of faith and sports. Tell us about it.
Well, it's called Run the Race.
I can do this. I've got nothing to lose and a scholarship to gain. And you're going to come with me wherever I go.
This is a story about two brothers that their mom passes away and their dad's an alcoholic. And it's a story about redemption. Most importantly, it's a story about how God loves every single one of us, whether we feel like it or not, whether we're in the highs or we're in the lows. I think there's a lot of storylines in this that hopefully will hit home for a lot of people.
You made news recently with something you said at a press conference.
Because you're always going to have critics and naysayers and people that are going to tell you that you won't, that you can't, that you shouldn't. Most of those people are the people that didn't, that wouldn't, that couldn't.
Why do you think there's been this groundswell of support for your words?
Hopefully it resonates with people. Why am I going to let someone else define me? Why am I going to let something that may or may not happen define me? Even if you don't get back to the big leagues, to the show, it's still worth it for me for so many reasons. 1, because I get to do what I love. 2, because I don't have to live with regret. 3, because I tried it, and regardless of what happens, I gave it my all. It's not just about if you make it or if you don't. That's not proving people wrong. Proving people wrong is that I get to go enjoy it every day, and I get to enjoy the journey, not just if I make it here or not.
You are clearly the most famous Florida Gator. Number 2 on that list is Steve Spurrier, asking you to play in the Alliance of American Football, want you to be his quarterback. Is there any chance you're giving up all this for the old ball coach?
No. I love Coach Spurrier. I think he's a great coach. I think it's a really good league. I think you're going to get a handful of players most every year to go from that league to the NFL. It's going to make that league more successful, just like the minors are for baseball. And I think the league's going to be successful, but I'm all in baseball right now, and I'm a Met. Let's go Mets.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Huge props to the third most famous Florida Gator, Nicky Del Castillo, for putting that piece together. Great job, Nicky. A couple things. Last night was the opening of Tim Tebow's movie. We're curious to see how it does throughout the course of the weekend. And today, Game 1, Mets spring training against the Braves.
You know, that was a great package. What I think a lot of viewers are thinking is, are we going to see him play for the Mets? And then after watching that and all the things he's involved in, and of course being true and steadfast to his message, spreading his message of his faith, is it your sense that he's maybe got too many things on his plate?
I think if anybody can handle all those things, it's him, because he's really good at all those things. He's learning how to be good at baseball, and the reports are from a lot of people in the know that in September, when those rosters expand to 40 people from 25, that he could get a call-up, and then Citi Field's going to be rocking. Guarantee they sell out every single game.
It'll be fun to watch, and he just recently got engaged.
Yes.
So congratulations to him.
I asked him what was harder, engaging or hitting a curve. He said, hitting a curve way harder.
All right, well, turning now to some of your headlines. A manhunt intensifying for this illegal immigrant accused of killing an unborn baby in a hit-and-run. Surveillance cameras capturing him buying beer at a Florida store just hours before the crash. Police believe he was drunk when he slammed into a woman 8 months pregnant. She is okay. Authorities say he doesn't have a driver's license and was deported from the U.S. in 2000. And Senator Elizabeth Warren makes another race-based pitch to voters. The 2020 presidential candidate suggesting both Native American and African Americans should get reparations for America's, quote, ugly history of racism.
We need to confront it head on, and we need to talk about the right way to address it and make change.
Castro have also called for reparations. And PETA is getting slammed for making disrespectful comments about the late Steve Irwin. The organization blasting Google's doodle celebrating the crocodile hunter and what would have been his 57th birthday. PETA tweeting, Steve Irwin was killed while harassing a ray. He dangled his baby while feeding a crocodile and wrestled wild animals who were minding their own business. Today's Google doodle sends a dangerous fawning message. Wild animals are entitled to be left alone in their natural habitats. PETA always making people happy. And a young boy uses the camera on his doorbell to ask his dad a very important question. The best video you'll see all day.
Dad? Dad?
How's it going, man?
How do you turn on the kid channel?
How do you turn on the kid channel?
Yes, how do you turn on?
The power button.
The dad away from home telling the Michigan boy how to turn on the kids channel. The boy ends the call by telling his father he loves him. The little boy wasn't home alone. His mother was at the neighbor's house. And those are your headlines. Smart kid. Technology these days,
Yeah.
you know?
Connect anyway. Hey, so Rick, you got the blue tie memo.
Yeah.
I like that.
I did. I
Yes.
didn't
And Charlie
notice that
Kirk
was
did too. I
happening.
think Kirk and I were wearing the same tie.
I mean, it's kind of probably happens, what, 80% of the time? Sure. Really, we all wear a blue tie, let's be honest. All right, here you go. Temps across much of the southeast, still warm. This right here is this kind of fighting battle line, though, with some really heavy rain, and that rain has been with us all week long. Had some spots here up to 10 inches of rain has caused incredible flooding. Take a look at the pictures coming out of Forsyth County, Georgia. A water rescue had to be done right there. And that is not the only place. We're seeing scenes like this headed into major flooding across better parts, the northern part at least, of Mississippi, Alabama, into Tennessee, and parts of Georgia. It's going to continue to go on today. The flood expanse is really large across parts of the Virginias, all the way down towards parts of the Mississippi Valley. The other problem we're going to have today is a tornado threat, and we could be looking at a few large, long-track tornadoes anywhere you see these hatch marks, but that bullseye of it there right in the red, a moderate risk issued by the Storm Prediction Center. That doesn't happen all that often. So a really rough day right where the flooding was. Now we've got tornado threat today. Guys?
All right. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
While Jussie Smollett claims he's innocent, the media is now blaming President Trump.
It also contributes to the Trumpian narrative that anything that is negative about him is not real.
I feel bad for the people who did not default to that empathy.
Well, our next guest is not. He is from Chicago and even has family members who have been victims of Chicago violence, and says Smollett is the only one to blame.
And Senator Bernie Sanders raising nearly $6 million in a matter of hours after announcing his 2020 bid. But Michael Knowles says, don't be fooled by Bernie's money bomb. He joins us to explain next. And any day you end a segment with Rick Astley, you've won, America. You've won.
Well, Jussie Smollett cut from the remaining season of Empire, yet still maintaining his innocence after police accused him of staging a hate crime on himself. Yet somehow the media is turning this scandal on President Trump and his supporters.
It also contributes to the Trumpian narrative that anything that is negative about him is not real. It's created by people on the left who are staging this drama.
I feel bad for the people who did not default to that empathy. Gloating today, those people have something fundamentally wrong with them.
I don't think this is the opportunity or the time for everybody to say, oh my gosh, so sorry you guys. Who would ever think that of the MAGA crowd?
Here to react, Fox News political analyst and Chicago native Gianna Caldwell. Gianna, what is your response to them now turning this back around on Trump supporters who were initially blamed for this hate crime?
Jussie Smollett's plan, although was a hoax, is obviously working. This was the intention from the very beginning. I got to be honest with you, Katie, knowing that I'm from Chicago and I'm actually sitting in Chicago today, realizing that there are legitimate victims of hate crime, and knowing that there is an African-American man of such great influence and notoriety within the African-American community and otherwise would use displays of nooses to demonstrate a hoax is outrageous, and it's a very emotional toll on me, and considering the fact that what a lot of African-Americans have gone through in this country. From 1882 to 1968, there were over 4,700 reported instances of hangings and lynchings, I should say. And with that being the case, knowing that this guy has used these symbols to demonstrate a smear campaign against Republicans or anyone is despicable. So when we think about this Jussie Smollett case, I'm just incredibly pained by what has occurred, and the fact that people are continuing to try to smear a particular movement, taking away the real racism that has occurred in this country, and some instances that continues today.
Right. Gianna, this is personal for you. You're from Chicago. You have family members who have been victims of real violence in that city. You're always wanting to move the conversation about race and division forward in this country. What would be your advice for people in the aftermath of this situation?
Well, certainly knowing that there was in 2017 about 7,100 cases reported of hate crimes in this country, knowing that white supremacists or whomever else would think of this as an opportunity because they know that victims wouldn't be exactly believed. There's going to be a higher intensity in terms of proven claims as there should be. We should wait for all the facts, certainly.
Right.
But we can see that there could be a potential uptick in these kind of situations. I think when we're talking about, issues of race and racism, we have to listen for the facts. We certainly do. And we obviously have to listen to each other because oftentimes in situations like this, whether it be Charlottesville or anything else, we're more times going into our corners and talking past each other versus trying to understand these issues and have these very candid conversations. Right. I think what this has done for any network, Fox or whoever else, we can at least have the conversation and hopefully not try to bash one another or smear particular movements because we may disagree with them.
A little grace and sticking to the facts would be helpful. Gianna Caldwell, we really appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
A Nebraska state senator calls our flag a rag. His colleague, who is a veteran, reacts next hour. And a new report reveals some of the most personal information on your smartphone is finding its way into Facebook's hands, even if you don't use an account. Kurt, the cyber guy, is here with a warning up next.